Now, your response to the light around you makes a big difference in how your images are going to communicate to others. So, you can't just turn a dial and figure out that all of a sudden you're going to be conscious of the light that's around you. It takes a little bit of time learning, understanding, watching, and it's probably spending more time observing than shooting. But a good photographer knows how to respond to the light in any given situation. Landscape photography is what a lot of people think they want to do. But the best landscape photography is usually shot in what we would call marginal light, where it's early morning or just after sunset or twilight. This makes the handling of the light very difficult. This photograph here of Monument Valley, in a later lesson I will dissect how I shot this on exposure because it is rather complicated in figuring out how this is done. But the best time to shoot landscapes is early morning, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. In other words, you got to be an early riser, or late in the evening, 5:30, 7:30, or even 8, 9 o'clock. You will definitely get different tones and hues of light depending on the time of day you're shooting. Usually, it'll be more blue in the morning, it'll be more orange in the evening. The quality of the contrast and the depth of the shadows increase your chances of getting a very good shot. The reason for this is that as the sun sets, for instance, or rises, the light must travel a longer distance and refract through the atmosphere. And like I say, in the evening, this will give an orange, or what we call an alpine glow, to the images, or in the morning when the atmosphere is much quieter and not stirred up by all the people doing things, it'll be a bluish color. But the light must travel long distances. Now, this is much more interpretive light than, say, later in the day. Landscape photographers call this the dead time. This is the time you do scouting and look for areas that you think will make a better shot when the light is more in your favor. At 10 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon, it's pretty flat, dull, boring light landscapes. You can get by with some creative techniques using neutral density filters and things like that. For the most part, the light is not that good because it is directly overhead. Shadows, again, like I said before in the last lesson, are harsh, and it is just not a really good shooting situation. There's less contrast, there's less shadows that create the intensity for your photographs and landscape, so midday is just not a good time to do it. Now, portraits, when you look at portraits, they can be done almost any time, but again, you should use the light that best interprets the subject. Now, in this case right here, all I did was open a door and use the reflective window type light to illuminate my subject, giving a very pleasing interpretive light. No direct light fell on the subject while I shot this, and normally that's the best type of light to use, but it does cause you to change your aperture and shutter speed to make adjustments. In any photographer's life, we're all going to go through a period where we like to do silhouettes because we just think they're cool and we like the contrast and the hardness of it, and it just really looks great. Unfortunately, as you look back on your silhouettes that you shoot after a period of time, you'll see there's not a whole lot of intensity or information there. Visually, they're kind of pleasing, but there's nothing really exciting about them after a while. But they do have a technique using silhouettes that is backlighting that can create some very interesting images. This is an example of backlighting, again using window light. The exposure was made with the highlights of the mother's face and allowing the shadow areas just to fall away. This photograph has a dramatic mood based on the type of light and how the photographer shot it. By contrast, this is the same type of light, a rim-lit, backlit situation, but the exposure this time is for the midtones in the face and letting the background fall away, or just disintegrate, fall off as we call it. This creates a totally different mood from the previous photograph, and yet it was shot in very similar light situations. These two images, like I say, shot in the same type of source, coming from behind the subject. On the girl on the left, the exposure was centered on her face and allowed the background to be blown out. And on the right, the highlight was exposed, and this shut down the tones and the shadows and created a more contrasty image. Now, backlit subjects call for very careful decision on metering and paying attention to the shadows. Notice how the light on this subject, which is backlit, wraps around the subject on those shoulders and stuff. This is how backlight works. The main light source is from behind. This can cast your face into deep shadow or create an exposure challenge. You have to make a decision what it is you want to capture. Do you want to capture those midtones of the face? Do you want to center on the highlights? This is a choice made by exposure, either your selections of f-stop, shutter speed, and the combination thereof to make a dramatic interpretation. Another type of light is called 50-50 type lighting or side lighting. Sometimes they call it even hatchet lighting, where the subject is literally cut in half by a light source. One half of the face illuminated, kind of like the light I'm in right now. The other half of the light, the other half of the face in shadow. An example would be, this would be an example of hatchet lighting, where it is extremely dramatic. It is not very flattering for people, so you need to watch how you use this type of light. But again, what we're talking about is kind of the categories of the type of light as light is used around a given subject, whether it's portrait, a thing, a place, a landscape, whatever it might be. As the light moves, it changes the dynamic, the mood, the information, everything goes on. The main thing to remember is the world is dynamic when it comes to light. It is constantly moving. Whatever type of light you are working in, you need to master the controls of the exposure equation. When you do, the one thing you will learn is you have control. And that is extremely important because remember, to be successful, a really good photographer must control the light at all times.